Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for rejoining me on the Daniel Greenland YouTube channel. If I look tired, it's because I am. I've been studying the 2008 financial crisis and just trying to, wrap my head around what actually happened. And the more I studied, the more simple it got actually. So I look forward to today's interview. I interview a guy named Dave, and he tells me about history that was most important to him. And it's something that obviously the financial crisis looms in the back of his mind even now, because he knows that there is something in the future that probably doesn't look good for any of us. So I'm going to go straight to the interview. I do hope you enjoy the overview as well. Please stick around for that, but let's get right to it. Off is what history is important to you, Dave?
Well, for me, and the most important thing is to know history repeats itself.
Okay.
When we look at historic events, especially when I look at my industry and where I'm going with my career, I want to know where the industry is going to go and where the market's going to go. And it's important for me to understand that there's always going to be a big bubble, and then there's going to be a burst. And especially with us, there's going to be times where we're going to be busier than anything else in the world, and it's going to be short-lived.
So are you specifically referencing 2008, the housing market?
2008 and currently.
Okay.
I mean, we're looking at an extreme bubble again. But any minute that bubble can burst, and I mean, I could be out of a job.
So that's your main trepidation is the job aspect. Like right now, you kind of live in high. You could sell it for so much more than what you pay for it, but at the same time, well, you have a fixed mortgage, right?
I do.
That was, I think that was one of the big problems in 2008 was that they kind of tricked them into changing their fixed mortgage into something that it wasn't. So your mortgage isn't necessarily going to shoot up, but you might be out of a job to where you can't pay for it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and honestly, a lot of construction companies during the recession went out of business.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he was lucky enough to purchase a construction company after the recession, and he bought it for pennies.
Mm-hmm.
And now that company is huge. And so, I mean, like I said, it comes in tides. And understanding the history of it allows us to prepare for the future, and allows us to, plan and be understanding to setting money aside and making sure that we are, ready for that downturn.
All right, guys, as always, I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of the 2008 financial crisis. And I'm probably in over my head, but because oftentimes I try to overview complex things in such a short period of time. But I think we got a handle on it today. As a kind of a base level, I'm sure you guys already know that the crisis didn't just happen in America, but I'm going to be focusing on America. And as a base knowledge, America, its economy really isn't run by a lot of goods. We don't produce a lot of things. A lot of things aren't made in the United States. We import a lot of different things. And so as a base knowledge, with just that alone, it's kind of not easy to see, but more clear to see how we even got to the 2008 financial crisis. It didn't start in 2008. It was happening years before. The prevailing minds thought, where do Americans hold their money? And it just so happens that we hold a lot of our money in real estate. Now, there are many variables that caused the crisis, and I'm not going to get into every single one, but I am going to mention a few. One was that prime buyers were kind of drying up, meaning those who had good credit, low debt to income ratios, solid employment, those people kind of around 2008 already had mortgages. The second thing is that lenders investment banks and even those credit rating companies, they began to develop their own schemes and start lying. And thirdly, it's really amazing as you start to study it. Thirdly, there was a plethora of other schemes by other companies that really wanted to jump in and capitalize on this market that seemed to be rising. So to kind of like form it all into a nutshell, in a perfect world, the home buyer would be a prime buyer. They would have good credit. They would have all the things necessary in order to apply for a loan. And then the lender would only approve people who had those requirements. And then the lender and the investment bank would only sell those off as securities or do whatever with that money if they knew that the buyer was in good standings anyway. And on top of that, in a perfect world, the rating companies wouldn't subdue the quality of their ratings just because they feared that other rating companies would get the business. That's what would happen in a perfect world, but that's exactly what didn't happen in this crisis. To be perfectly honest, what actually happened was a sham. Everyone was full. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Everyone was full of crap. I'm gonna say it. From the home buyer all the way to the rating company, every single person knew what they were creating was crap. If you have debt, if you don't have a stable job, you probably know in the back of your mind you shouldn't be trying to buy a home. And then there on up, everybody's lying. There were other situations too where people were tricked into changing their mortgage into, trying to refinance, get some money out of it. Lenders lied and changed their mortgage into this loan that just totally wasn't what they were signing. The home buyers didn't read the fine print. Something that is kind of crazy, and I learned this from an investigative journalist by the name of I think Matt Taibbi, is that there was even other companies, not just lenders and different things. There were insurance companies wanting to get in on the action too. There's this thing called the credit default swap, which in essence was just betting. Unattached parties were betting on mortgages that weren't theirs, and trying to, bet whether they were going to default or whether they weren't. And people were taking those bets. There were bookies for these things in insurance companies. And when everything started to fall, not only did the housing market fall, but all these bets started to fall. And it all just kept falling on top of each other, where it resulted in loss of jobs, loss of homes. It was truly a recession time. For my family, we owned our own business, and to see so many businesses go out, it really affected us as well. There are so many details that, you really ought to study this crisis in order to prepare for the future. But I'm going to go right back to the interview and see what else we can learn from Dave.
So what have you learned from the housing crash and COVID, the pandemic? What could we do to prepare for it in your mind? I mean, there's so many answers to that. But
so the biggest thing is for me, not be fixed in my career. I need to be able to diversify myself and be able to find something else, to be able to provide for my family.
Mm-hmm.
If the industry crashes and construction just halts, it's not going to halt completely, but it's gonna stop enough where people are going to be laid off. And if that happens, I need to change industries, or I need to change my job description.
What do you feel about, not to get off topic, but what do you feel about inflation right now? What would you think?
That's part of the bubble that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Is as soon as things start normalizing.
Because that bacon's over $20 right now.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay.
And, over the summer we went to Iceland. And
that's awesome.
One of the scariest things for me was when I traded in my $2,500 of American dollars. I got $400,000 in Icelandic money.
Whoa.
Now, they are spending $1,000 for a liter of gas.
Mm-hmm.
So $1,000 for a liter. Now the reason why that their money is so flip flopped
Mm-hmm.
is because of their inflation, and
Wow.
they hit that point during the recession of 2008, and so.
And they still haven't recovered. You said last year
They recovered, but their dollar is still
Yeah.
thousands. So it's weird to think, you open up your wallet and you have $400,000 in it.
Yeah.
Like, that's are we gonna hit that point? And
Well, I don't think Californians ever thought that their $50,000 home would be worth $800,000 to $1 million.
No.
So I could see that pattern. That's a good question to bring up. Will we hit that point?
So I mean, if you look at everybody else's pattern, or the patterns of the economy, it just comes in a big cycle, and it's gonna reproduce itself over and over again. A bunch of other financial institutions, they met their demise because of those risky decisions. And so there were a bunch of executives that did go down for it. Did they really pay the price? Not really, but
Probably not with jail time.
no, and we're not hearing about them like we should.
Yeah.
But it honestly it was risky consumerism. Like we got greedy. We decided that, oh yeah, we can afford this. And our eyes got bigger than what we could handle.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets really scary, but you can be really optimistic, because if you prepare for it financially, and you prepare yourself mentally to understand, okay, this could happen to me at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
I need to prepare myself so that I am not just fiscally, but I am prepared with a career,
Mm-hmm.
with a change, and we have the reserves to do this.
Yeah.
And I think with that optimism, or with that knowledge, you can at least ride it out.
Yeah, I can tell you feel really strongly about this. Like,
I do.
It
yeah.
probably, I mean, men, and maybe I'm making generalizations, but I think we stress a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially about finances, but
Yeah.
this is something that is really important to you. And it should be important. We don't even have to go back. The crazy thing is we don't even have to go back 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years. It was 2008. It's like, you don't have to go back, and people have, like you said, forgotten.
So, I mean, that's a lesson learned. I mean, you got to prepare yourself, and when you start seeing things go as crazy as they are, then you start saying, well, why didn't I prepare sooner? But now is the time for me to start.
Yeah, seriously, I think essentially people see what's going on, but they're ignoring it.
Yeah.
They're thinking it's far off.
And it's
People have been saying that the bubble's going to burst. It's still far off. Yeah, well, maybe it's not. You should prepare now.
Well, thank you so much for tuning into that interview. How do we prepare for the next financial disaster? I don't have the answer for you. But I hope that this history was important to you enough to where you'll go and search that answer for yourself. Please go ahead and like this video. If you can, do a few comments. And most importantly, turn on your notification bell so you know exactly when I'm dropping my videos. And I will see you guys next time.
Run away low, faster and faster, I find my way, faster and faster, I learn from pain, in my eyes so that I feel safe, frustrated.